So Sony Pictures finally decided to work with Marvel Studios to bring your friendly neighborhood web-slinger into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let's see how this newest reboot fares in my review of Spider-Man: Homecoming. Trying to settle back into normalcy after fighting alongside Iron Man and the Avengers, Peter Parker finds himself wanting to keep doing good as the web-slinging Spider-Man. Things become complicated though when a new villain, the Vulture, begins causing destruction with new high-tech weapons, and Peter's ambition pushes himself into dangerous scenarios that he might not be ready to handle. Cautioned by Tony Stark, the teenage Parker tries to step back and embrace his high school life. However, he is quickly compelled by the hero inside to battle against all odds to take down this winged menace. So Spider-Man: Homecoming is the result of many missteps and changes of direction that Sony Pictures decided to take with their licensed Spider-Man movie franchise after the critical and commercial underperformance of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was a film that many people very much viewed as a over-bloated, overworked mess with a lot of misguided attempts to jumpstart a Spider-Man shared universe. And so they went off and collaborated with Marvel Studios to inject their licensed Spider-Man franchise into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Spider-Man: Homecoming is a film that I went into very much with a fairly fresh and clean slate of things that I didn't inject myself with too many trailers or too many clips or whatnot. I very much got to a point, stopped watching stuff so I could just not go in with having 1,000 images in my head to kind of clutter up the experience of seeing this film. And ultimately, I didn't absolutely love Spider-Man: Homecoming, but I certainly did not hate it. There's a lot of fantastic, great elements in this film, but there's also some stuff in Homecoming that I felt was very lackluster and a little bit underdeveloped. There are certain elements in this film that just didn't feel like they were developed as much as they possibly could have been. But leading off this Spider-Man film and this new incarnation of Spider-Man in general is Tom Holland in the role of Peter Parker and our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, who does a really solid piece of work here. That he is a very capable young actor with a whole lot of potential going forward, because all the wit and comedy that you need to have from Peter Parker to be recognizable as Peter Parker, if he doesn't have a sense of humor, a sense of that youthful freshness, he's not Peter Parker in a lot of people's eyes, and he really does capture that very naturally in the film here, getting a lot of banter, a lot of chemistry with his co-stars, especially working opposite Robert Downey Jr. and a couple other people in the film. Gets a lot of good, solid talent to kind of work off of and have a lot of great, good stuff written for him as the character here to give him a lot of nice stuff to work with throughout the entire course of the film, because there is a character arc with Peter Parker here that is this character who gets pulled into like the thick of things with Captain America Civil War there, being drafted in this scenario by Tony Stark and everything, and now he's just this kid who wants to prove himself, wants to be an Avenger, wants to be accepted on that top level of superheroes in this universe. And so he's so enthusiastic, he's so passionate about it, that he does kind of go headlong into things very strongly, and he's a little bit stumbling here and there, he's a little bit unrefined. There's a lot of need for the character to grow and fail and learn from that type of stuff, become a better hero overall throughout the entire course of the film. And I think Tom Holland does grasp all that very, very well, grapple with some of the emotional context of the film, and just give you those moments where you do believe in the character so much, believe him as a heroic type of figure, that he does have all these great moments in the film where he does push himself back up to kind of get himself back up to that level after a lot of things happen in the film, where he does kind of fail, and then he has to kind of prove himself genuinely in the eyes of everyone as Spider-Man here. I think he does such a really good job balancing all these things with a character that is heartwarming, he's still endearing, he's still charming, and still has the wonderful heroic moments in the film. But there were a couple little things I felt were kind of missing in the makeup of this version of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, that for some reason they haven't integrated the spider sense into him yet, which is, For anyone who knows anything about Spider-Man knows that the spider sense is such an integral part of the character's makeup, of his powers, how he acts, how he reacts, how he does what he does when he's in combat situations and everything. It's just like, it's almost taken for granted, the spider sense being such an important part of who Spider-Man is and everything that he does. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Maybe they're going to have that be a power that develops later on or something like that. I don't know. And also, maybe this will also come along later on where they kind of mature the character, where he gets to a much more confident place where he is, because in this film, like I said, he's very exuberant, enthusiastic type of character who's trying to get along into situations. So maybe later on, you'll end up getting a lot more of the wisecracking, confident type of stuff that he has, the wit, the banter, the quips that he throws at his enemies that kind of throw him off balance psychologically. There are a few little beats here and there where he does throw in a little something there, but it's a little bit more in the background. It's a little bit more subtle type of stuff. Some of the other adaptations of Spider-Man cinematically have kind of hit that little bit stronger at certain points in time. But those are the only little things I felt were kind of missing from the makeup of this Spider-Man. But moving on with the rest of the cast here, you have a really good sort of supporting cast here with the character of Ned, portrayed by Jacob Batalon, who's a very close friend of Peter Parker's, who has such great chemistry with Tom Holland in the film, with this sharp, witty banter that they have going on, nice heartwarming quality that they build between each other throughout the entire course of the film. It just brings something more to the table to have another character for Peter to relate to go on the journey with, and all this type of stuff in the film. Just have another conduit for the audience to connect to Peter overall, so it's like he's not so isolated in the film. He has a friend there to kind of relate to and kind of pull things with and talk things out and kind of collaborate with throughout the entire course of the film. It's a nice sort of outlet and counterbalance when you have Robert Downey Jr. in this film as Tony Stark, this sort of father figure, this guy who's really kind of looking out for Peter, a guy who believes in Peter, but is trying to gauge him, trying to temper him in a certain way, to not have him go too far over his head in certain situations. And again, Robert Downey Jr. is a fantastic actor, charisma sky high and everything. He does such a solid job here, again, bringing the goods as Tony Stark, a guy who is such a talented actor. He can just do this stuff so effortlessly and just bring such strong quality to it that you just see that he has a lot invested in making sure that this performance still rings true after so many years as Iron Man. He can still bring it, still tap into the core of the character, and still bring something else to as a supporting character in the film, because a lot of promotional materials might think you have Tony Stark for a very large majority of the film. There's a big presence of Iron Man in the film, and that is not the actual case in the film. Tony Stark has only a few scenes in the film. You get Iron Man showing up in like one sequence, and the film is mainly focused on Spider-Man becoming this big hero, coming through in all the major heroic moments in the film. There are moments in the film where they could have had Iron Man swoop in and be the heroic beat in the film and just have a big crowd-pleasing thing that ultimately would lay flat and damage the character of Spider-Man in the storyline in the film. But then make sure they don't do that. They don't do that type of thing. They don't just bring in Iron Man because they had Tony Stark available to him, Downey available to him. They make sure the story services Spider-Man in this film and uses Tony Stark as this nice cog in the entire storyline as an emotional quality to really tap into certain things that really just aid the character in general. It's a nice, solid relationship that you build between Peter and Tony in this film, and Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. just click so very well in this film. And getting Michael Keaton to be the villain of this film as Adrian Toomes the Vulture is an amazing piece of work here, because Michael Keaton, again, another guy who can bring it effortlessly, brings so much gravitas and so much presence and so much threatening quality to this character to enhance what they put on the page for this character, which they do lay in some nice, solid pieces of motivation and depth and layers to this character. I think they put forth more effort into this character than a lot of Marvel Cinematic villains have been for the last couple of years. There's a nice, solid groundwork and foundation for this character, and portrayed by such an incredible actor. Michael Keaton delivers it as character. I just like seeing Michael Keaton in this film, this guy who just can just deliver such great things in such a versatile amount of roles that he can just He can be psychotic, he can be threatening, he can be all these interesting things and balance them out so well that you're engaged by the character on screen despite him being a villain, but they create relatable qualities for him. You understand what he is, but he's such a smartly written character. They're not written to be a throwaway character in a certain way. There is a solid quality with him that you're going to remember him for a certain amount of time here. So I think they did a great job writing the character, and an even better job of actually casting this character, the Vulture, here, because it's such a nicely done piece of work to really balance it out. I was so compelled watching Keaton on screen be this character and to be invested in the villain of the film, which is not something you can say for a lot of Marvel cinematic films with their villains. It's not a regular occurrence, but you get Michael Keaton in there, he can deliver it no matter what. But moving on to some of the things I felt were a little bit underwhelming with the film was that you got the high school teenage type of stuff laid in there where there's a lot of talk about them wanting to tap into sort of a John Hughes 1980s type of vibe. But I felt like so much of that stuff in the film just felt very stock. They didn't feel like they put in a lot of depth, dimension. They didn't really do anything all that much with it. It felt like they just took little elements of stuff you've seen 100 times in other high school comedies or angsty type of dramas or whatnot, and just like, here it is on the screen. We're not really going to do anything with it. It's just kind of there just to be there, and they're not going to develop anything with it. None of the characters involved with that part of the story is really going to have much depth. You're not going to have anything really developed there as anything that's going to be terribly engaging, in my opinion. It just felt like all that stuff was just kind of filler between the scenes, where you got Peter Parker engaged with much more dimensional characters of the film. Even the character of Ned, like I said, is a nicely developed character. You get a lot of good qualities from him, and just when he gets into being Spider-Man and all this other stuff, that he is kind of using a lot of investigative type of stuff to keep up with the villains and everything. All this stuff was very interesting and engaging in the film. I just felt the high school stuff and all that type of stuff just didn't engage me. I didn't feel like the characters were well developed in any type of way possible. For example, you get Zendaya cast in this role, this girl who's really not really a character in the film. She's just there in a couple of scenes to be dour and snarky, just have this one-line quip and whatnot, which is it's just totally throwaway type of stuff. They don't develop the character anywhere. They give her any really good qualities or whatnot. Just like this character who's there, just for no reason whatsoever. There's no depth to the character, there's no importance to the character. She's just there. Even what they do with Flash Thompson, who is still a bully, but they've altered the character to the point where he's now kind of this smug, rich, academic type of guy. So he's not the type of big-ass bully type of jock type of guy he's been in the past. They've altered his character at a certain point, but there doesn't seem like much of a point to why they did it, because they don't do anything with the character. Even in Mark Webb's The Amazing Spider-Man, I like that they actually made the character of Flash Thompson develop and grow and actually show that he has a sense of humanity to him. They actually did something with the character in that film to make him feel like he's an actual dimensional person. Again, this film, they go back to just having it be very two-dimensional, flat type of stuff with not a lot of depth or anything, just like it's there just to be there, just to hit that note that people are expecting you to hit, but you don't really do anything with it. So it's like all that stuff involved with the high school stuff, the teenage angst type of stuff, girlfriend stuff, didn't have a lot of resonance for me. It just felt like when you've had a film just last year like The Edge of 17 with Haley Steinfeld, who took all those very typical type of high school drama, comedy type of things, but wrapped up with so much talent, so much good execution, and so much depth and resonance to what they could bring to the screen with those ideas and those themes and everything. That felt like a very strong type of film that did something fresh with something very familiar. This is just familiar and just stuck in there just to be there. I felt they could have done something a lot more resonant with that type of stuff, especially even going along that same line. You got Marisa Tomei here as Aunt May, who's very much underused in the entire film. They really don't do anything with the character of Aunt May except, again, just to be there in general. So it's like all these little elements that they had in the film that they could have done a lot of good stuff with and just put a little more touches into it to really have a little bit stronger here and there, really just lay flat and just don't do anything much with the context of the film, where they could have added more to those parts of the film. Just made me feel a little bit underwhelmed in that type of realm. But getting back to the superhero type of stuff, the action sequences of this film are really well done. They're very, very satisfying type of stuff. You just get some nice Spider-Man action where you just get him doing all those fairly classic type of Spider-Man things where he is kind of jumping all around. He's doing wild stuff with the webs and everything, and they got a little bit of a tech-enhanced suit from Tony Stark here, so he's got a little bit more interesting things, a little bit of things that kind of change up the dynamic of what he can do with all these little things that he usually does. So it's a nice, cool little thing that they kind of do with all these action sequences, and they build up the stakes as the film goes along. The action sequences do get bigger, but with absolute purpose to the storyline and everything that's going forward in the film. I like that they use the escalating spectacle in relation to the escalating stakes of the entire storyline with Adrian Toomes and Peter Parker and all this type of stuff. The stakes get bigger, the danger gets bigger, and so the heroics have to get bigger. So it's a nicely crafted type of way in that element of the film. I thought all those dynamics between, again, Peter Parker and Tony Stark and the character of Ned and all these other people, even getting Jon Favreau come back as Happy Hogan, doing some nice work there too. All those characters who were very well fleshed out in the film, they all really bounce off each other so well. Even, again, you get scenes with Peter Parker and Spider-Man going up against Adrian Toomes, all this good stuff, just like all these characters, all these actors really do such nice work in that realm. It just makes all those little flatter parts of the film just feel like you showed you could do some really good stuff with the other stuff. The other stuff, this high school level stuff, you really just didn't put much effort into, and that just hurts me a little bit. But he also got some nice work from Michael Giacchino with the score of this film, who does nice work still. I mean, he did Doctor Strange last year, was pretty good. It does some nice little touches in this score, adding in very classic Spider-Man theme at points, and just does a general good piece of work. I really liked what he put into this film, a nice sense of heart and rousing type of feel to it. So I felt all the personal stuff they did with Peter Parker, the internal conflicts he had, and all the superhero type of stuff, and all that stuff, how kind of mingled in together, threaded itself together in the end of the film. It all worked out very nicely. I think I really like those elements. I like the general story of it, how those things come together and they kind of cross over and everything, and just weaves a nice web of real interesting character connections, and how the character of Peter Parker just weaves himself through the entire story to have this nice arc building up to a certain point and having a really nice piece of work at the end of the film, just having growth and stuff like that for this character to really endear him to new audiences, to reinvigorate the franchise, and give you something hopeful to look forward to the future with Tom Holland as your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So guys, even if there were some weaker elements, I felt like they really should have done something a little bit more, in my personal opinion, that they wanted to do something John Hughes-esque. And I never really felt like they really captured that type of spirit. Even the 80s song soundtrack type of stuff they picked out felt like very weak sauce to me. I listened to a lot of 80s music, a lot of 80s pop music and everything, and it just felt like there wasn't a strong selection of songs, and the general vibe just didn't feel like it hit that depth that I really wanted to get from those points in the film. But in general, Spider-Man Homecoming is a good film. Even if you might have a few issues with it, maybe if you absolutely love the film, I'd like to get your comments below, guys. Line on here what you guys feel about this film, and just how you feel that Spider-Man will go forward, going into Avengers Infinity War and all these other things that I have planned for him in the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and what Sony is doing on the other side of things with characters like Venom and stuff like that. See where things go, and if they ever connect in a certain way. It's a very complicated mess. But regardless of that, give me your comments below in the down below there. Thumbs up on the video if you enjoyed hearing me rant and rave and talk and discuss this film. Throw your comments below, guys. I'm getting sweaty, I'm getting tired. So thanks, guys, for watching. I'll be back soon. Take care. Bye-bye.